Well, all right, let's begin. To get the flow. Yeah. Okay, so in the middle of Vayidaber. So Vayidaber is explaining, or to explain the avodah of rotza and shuv. That's what this whole maamar is to explain. So in just mamish, the broadest brush strokes. To get this in context is that in order to understand the rotza and shuv, he explains that there is a hefsek. The parasa, the whole tzimtzum is what creates the rotza and shuv. The two, what appears to be different realities of where the kus is revealed and the kus is concealed. Pre-tzimtzum, post-tzimtzum. Hence, being in post-tzimtzum is the rotza. But that has to be balanced with the shuv, because I've already did a petachtoin. What comes now is a meditate kabir in explaining the nature of how the rotza should be. Rabbi Akiva's rotza of nichnas b'sholem. And he hinted to that in his Bavornish. He forewarned his chaverim. He said, when you come to the avnei shayish toher, the pure marble stones, don't say mayim mayim. They look like water, but don't say water, water. In the pshat level, Rashi says, and you'll say, how can we proceed from here? That's Rashi's pshat. We're going to see the Arizal's pshat. This is all based on the beer of the Arizal, and it's in these words of the avnei shayish toher, and don't say mayim mayim, where the rotzoy, if you do, then it's a rotzoy that's not appropriate. That's a rotzoy bilti rotzoy, which we're going to explain. So he already began the hasbara in explaining the inyan of mayim, based on the pasuk, not so much mayim, but the image reflected in the mayim. K'mayim ponim leponim. So the pasuk says, "K'mayim ponim aponim kein leva adam la'adam." Again, the simple pshat is one heart to the other. The deeper pshat is the adam ha'tachton and the adam ha'elyon. Yeah. So number one. Number two, he established the fact that whenever there's amshacha from a radical place, there has to be the rotzoy. In other words, if it's amshacha, which is ilava olol, there's no need for an arousal from below. That's the nature of things. Chesed engenders gvura, chachma bina, and it's a natural flow and evolution of expression of gilui. One will lead naturally to the other. That's what ilava olol means, a cause and effect. We're not talking cause and effect now, we're talking about a radical amshacha. So for that, there has to be a parsa. That's a tzimtzum. Overall, that's the of the tzimtzum, the sidus, a lot of nuanced detail in that in the Acharei, but just making it general to get the flow here, that there's the need of the tzimtzum. So the tzimtzum creates, therefore, pre-tzimtzum and post-tzimtzum, gilui and helam. We're post-tzimtzum. Now, again, in order for the amshacha to happen, it all really starts with the matter, the rotzi of the matter. The rotzi of the matter is what elicits the revelation of a level that is otherwise removed fundamentally from the makabel. The big chiddush of the maamar here is that the rotzi of the matter impressions the maila, but in a way that there's nothing added to the maila, and there can't be. The maila is a likus. What he's really dealing with is the thorny problem, which is in the end not neatly, I think it's impossible to reconcile fundamentally. Really, the core of the issue here is reconciling Ein Mulvadoi and his creation. That's really the core of it, which is irreconcilable. With all of the Hesbedim Chassidus, we approach it with Mishalim, including this one here. of the image in the water, but still otherness, yes, otherness, not otherness, bottled by Metzius. We get as close and close as we can, but we can never fully reconcile it because here we are in Metzius. And we're saying we're not Metzius. But who's saying you're not a Metzius? You are Metzius. And Torah says, maybe this is an illusion. No, Torah says, creation is a reality. So on one hand, it's a reality. On the other hand, they're fundamentally reconcilable. So that's the whole chassidus in a way, is to get us closer and closer by inducing, inspiring deeper and deeper levels of bittul to express this truth. There is and there isn't simultaneously. We are not. So it's really, this is really the core of the discussion here, of these oiris for the rotzen limlucha. The Eibishter has a desire. What? Oh, so when you say that word, he had a desire, it's already something other. Desire implies otherness to something on the most subtle level. And then the desire is what? So what the Maimon is saying is that it all begins with, we're going a little bit ahead, but Hashem choosing, it comes down to this Pchiras Atzmus, choosing to entertain the tainug that he'll have from Avodah. Again, it's all a choice, and that's impressioned within him. That's the image. That's the lev, the Odom HaTachten. That's in the water. Did it change? No, there's nothing other than the water. The water didn't acquire the image. It's not, doesn't even produce by the image. Not even produced, not even produced by the water. So to say the water has to, the water has to make these images. It doesn't. It's completely poshut. Doesn't have to be any images in the water at all. The water remains that way even when the image is there. And yet the image is there, and yet the image is an absolutely faithful rendition of the mat of the outsider looking at the water. So this is this oiris before even the rotzen limlucha, the dargasi, before even the rotzen limlucha, the articulated, I want to be a king, which is already an admission of there is others and there's a kingdom and other. Even before that, the tainug of avodah, in simple language, is the pchiras ha'atzmos, that there should be neshamas, people that will touch him, that he chooses that they should. That's how it all begins, in such a way, however, that doesn't compromise his absolute oneness, like the image in the water still remains essentially water. Non-change. Huh?
Hard because it doesn't change. The water doesn't change. The thing that doesn't change. It just almost makes it seem like it's a surface level thing that's not really relevant. It's not relevant to the water. What's reflected in it? Anything can be reflected in the water.
Anything can be reflected in the water. Yeah. So that's the point. Atzmos chose this reflection and no other. First of all, he chose there should be a thing called reflection. But then, that's the only, that's what's there. There's no other image by his choice. It's the leva Odom HaTachten that he has chosen to be impressioned, whatever that word means here, but he's in the motion of the water very ethereally in the leva Odom HaElyon. That's a summary of what's coming. All to explain how it begins, and trying with the help of the psukim. This Hashem is helping us by giving us the psukim to understand how he works, because he wants us to understand this. In other words, it didn't have to be any process. Always we keep on saying the holy shtalshalus didn't have to be. If you want to do b'tachtonim, finish gamarno, just make a tacht and go from atzmos. But integral to dir b'tachtonim is the relationship. It's not just this free choice to make a tacht and then make a dir. That's not the point. But just to elaborate, one of the big chidushim of the Rebbe that he articulated in Chelik Dad Lekut Sichos, it's a famous landmark sicha. It's this idea of a lichtike dir, an illuminous dir. A luminous dir. Meaning to say, it's not just connection to essence without any appreciation or understanding of it, beyond, but in luminous, it inspires understanding in the mind, the heart. That's the relationship he wants, not just essentially. He wants us to connect with every fiber of our finite condition. Now, that's all part of Pchiras HaAtzmos, to create a human being with. You know what comes out here is that the SS spheres, it's not like we can eventually think. It starts from Lamaila, at the end of the chain, we end up having the same thing on this vastly downgraded level as human beings. It's the other way around. It's all starts with, because Pchiras Atzma says, this human being, therefore I'm going to project those things. The Leva Adam, the Mata, is really what causes Leva Adam, the Maila. The image in the Likus is really because you have it, therefore I will. That's all of this deep Chira. It's beyond the usual, we have it because of him, he has it because of us. Now, why is there an us? Because he chose that there should be. But there's no language there anymore. They're just pure Pchiras Atzmos.
Capturing the effect that it has. They're also trying to capture the Hamshacha. I think I remember getting the ice mentioned that we discussed the Hamshacha, the Lamayla. The Masha doesn't seem to do that. The Masha is what I'm saying, it's capturing the effect that we have on Atzma.
And therefore we draw his revelation to us.
Revelation being the reflection we see.
Yeah, we draw Hashem through these 10 spheres to us. But that's him through us. Also part of what the Mashal is saying, that this image is not compromised him. So even though he is expressing this image, that image is in the water. The water is the Mashal of the himself. But it's still the pure water. So he's giving himself totally through this image to us because that's our image. So we're mamshech his revelation in its purity via this image. All this coming down to because he wants a relationship with us, which means that he's essentially connected to us with all the details of our humanity, and hence he expresses himself with all of these details. But it's him. It's the mayim that we're getting. The purity of Alikus, not some mask, some distant construct. Intimate him, the most intimate way. The Rebbe doesn't spell all of this out in the Maimon. Like, each one has to, but it seems to be this is what he's saying here. So just to conclude the point, what was he saying before on this topic? So, all right, sure. Enough said. Okay, so we are up to now page Reishay. We're the middle of the second of the first Ois of Vayidaber. And he had brought, which we're up to, right at this point of the Rotzoi. He's saying that the image is to recall this because it's negated. This is the origin of Bittul B'Metzius and Bittul Hayesh is here in the mashal of the image in the water as opposed to the fish in the water. The fish in the water are also bottled. Halachically, they're inseparable. And there's according to the opinion of Rabbi Gamliel that person immerses in the water and the fish touches him. It's a good tvila. Because the whole mitzvah, at the end of the day, the fish in the water, it's not one and the same thing. So we're not talking that. That's not enough. That bittul isn't enough. So let's see so what does he want from us? What's the rotzah? Let's see now. Let's try and understand it. So we're struggling together with this. Mashenki, by the number 54 in the text. 54 in the text, that number. Mashenki. Let's see the words here, Mashenkim being in Kambayim upon him. So in contrast to the fish that are nullified but still separate. But here the image that's placed before the water, that image is not a creation. Not only is not an entity, it's not even an entity that the water has produced. So the water retains its purity. I didn't make this, as if to say this is what naturally comes from me. It doesn't. What is there? Only water. And yet the image is there. So this is all to explain to us the Rotzoi, the Avodah that's required, that began all of Dira B'Tachtoinim, and that we need to realize and complete. And that is, and this the pasuk is saying like the Kamayim Panim Apanim, so to the heart of the Adam is to the Adam. Again, the Adam, the first Adam is a reference to us, Adam Atachten, and Adam, the second one is Adam Alien. So I know Shepulas this Adam Lamata being Narotzoi. So what is the Pa'ula that we hear in our longing for a desire for a connection to Hashem, which is La'oiris Hamshachem Adam Alien Shalakis, the objective of which is to elicit, this is what he wants us to draw his presence. The first level of the Adam Elyon is Atzilus. He's going to go lift that Tzimtzum soon. He's taking us higher and higher. But first, Atzilus is the Adam Elyon, and we are Biyah. In brackets, Zod Atzilus. So this Rotzoi, he kedmus hapon imanirim b'mayim, is like, you have a copy of the Maimon. Is like the image that's in the water. Haino is very important, very, very delicate here. Number one, the person's image is faithfully with every detail reflected in the water. So therefore, the Amshach is going to penetrate and relate to the minutiae of the details of our limitation. That's what's there in the Maya. Not a vague image. It's a still water, it's pristine, it's every hair. Now, the marshal here is Atzilus. Atzilus is, relatively speaking, that's the Adam Elyon, beyond Biyah. Which is why there has to be the Tzimtzum. Bria is already otherness. So therefore, the marshal for Atzilus is water. Relatively speaking, Atzilus, the Biyah, is this pure water that has no form or color or tzir. Because of the absolute transcendence of Atzilus. And there's no form at all. Therefore, the image that's placed there is completely room for that image and all of it. It's not, I've got my image you've got to fit into. Because of the purity of Atzilus, it doesn't elaborate here. But therefore, the image that's impression there is complete. Now, this was translated in words.
Transparency.
Yeah, but understand what it means. Yeah. So because the Eibishter, now we're discussing the level of Atzilus, but the same model will be Lifnei Tzimtzum. It's all his free choice. It's not like there's no Hagabol at all. The Moshel is Mayim. And what has he chosen? He's chosen that the Adam HaTacht, and he wants a relationship with us. And because of his pshitus, therefore us in all of our limitation are completely impressioned, they're uncompromised. If, in other words, to use a motion in our world, if I have to have a relationship with somebody else, there's fundamental problems. I am me and you are you. Yeah, some are fit in. It's a negotiation. It's a negotiation. Therefore, the key to any relationship is bittul. The more bittul, the more put self aside, the more you can fit in. And that's an endless struggle. That's why Kiddushin is, for example, which is the ultimate union. There's no union like marriage. Like children is different, because children are an extension of you. It's not the moshel over here, although there is elements of that. But in better example is Kiddushin. Marriage in Allah, it's a big Kiddush of the rocket job, is an ongoing process. It's not like other contracts. It's done once, it's done, finished. This is not a contract that's done once, has halachic ramifications. It's an active Kiddushin constantly. Why? Because it's an impossible thing. It's two people becoming one. That requires constant avodah of bittul, of putting self aside. It never goes on what's the word I'm looking for? On automatic pilot. It's not a marriage. The marriage is this person has come inside you. You're one. It's not a partnership in business where you have your boundaries. I start here, you start there. We negotiate the boundaries, and we have a nice relationship. It's not harmonious. It's one plus one equaling one. It's impossible. Which means it means the constant bittul to make room. But the Eibishter, because it's pure. Because the Eibishter, there's the beginning, there's no tzir, there's no form, and because of his utter pshitus, when the Eibishter decides, I want a relationship with you, in all of you in me, then all of you is in him. There's room completely. For God makes room. There's in his world, there's room for everything. Because of his complete utter purity and transcendence, no ego, no yesh at all. That's the words, it seems, the pshat of Yishalach and therefore, the whole tzir of the Adam HaTachton appears in the water because of his pshitus. Huh?
The problem is us.
But so far, no problem. This is all beautiful.
The problem
We are the
is us.
desire.
The ancient inside himself is ready for everybody. We
Need to
are
want it.
resisting.
Yeah, the point of this mind is the rotzui. The point of this mind is it's got to be the rotzui. But then the beauty is going to be the mayim. Rabbi Akiva told his chaverim, no mayim. If that's what you have, then you missed it. We're going to see it. I don't want to give it away. Let's go further. So the same model we just described now, Bria and Atzilus. Adam Atachtim is Bria, Adam Elyon is Atzilus. And likewise, we're now the second paragraph. Even hiding the Tzimtzum. Did we learn this already? We did. Doesn't matter. Let's get clear. The geography, we did learn this. The Aliyas HaRotzen is the articulated will of Hashem, Ano Emlech. I want to be king. That was Dir Petachtoin. We're going higher than that. What caused this Rotz? Because I want to be king already is assuming all kinds of things. There is people, there's kingdoms, he wants to be king. But why is there king? Why how did this whole thing begin? So we're starting Mamash in Atzmos. I mean, what are we doing in Atzmos? Because that's the Eibishter wants. This all the B'tachtonim is I want you to know me in the deepest way. That's what I was saying before. That he could have made creation, just boom, creation, Gamana. But that's missing the whole point. The Lichte Kedira, the Rebbe's word, that the home has to be not just a home, that there is the building. It has to reflect, every detail has to reflect those that live there. And sparkle and reflect it in the nuance of every part of the home. Things are here and things are there and so on, and the color and all of these things. So therefore, the Eibishter made it in such a way that that's all part of his kavanah. Understand the way I did this. And I did this all based on the way I made you. And that's inexplicable. That's already, boom. But because of that, I'm therefore expressing myself in this way so that you will understand me and we connect and there's a longing and there's a relationship because we're the same. Which is why, I don't know who said this, but every level we learn in Chassidus, if we cannot find it in human behavior, we're not grasping it. We cannot find it because that's the whole point that it's theirs because of relationship with us. Because akudim of just abstract levels. What's the point? What's the point of it? It has to relate to our relationship, our world, and relationships, because that's what it's all about. And if you can't translate, so what does it mean? And then I haven't grasped it yet, or at least not fully, or not even really the point of it. Okay, let's go. So likewise, if not tzimtzum, it's from lifnei tzimtzum to the whole amshacha. Post tzimtzum has to begin. We spoke about Atzilus and Bria, but it doesn't come in a vacuum. It all starts off the highest levels of Atzmus and later in Sof. So what happens? So how does it all begin over there? We did learn this. Okay, it doesn't matter. We learn it again. How does it nas al yedei aliyas haman minei obei? Halos haman minei obei. So we did last week. Say it again. Man is mein nukvin. Mein nukvin means feminine waters. Feminine waters is this catchword for the mekabel. He spoke about kala, what kala means, right? Minei obei, that the Eibishter himself, like, entertained the tainug of the mekabel. The delight is going to have, again, that's a chosen thing. It's also not a given. But it's a b'chiras ha'atzmos. Again, here it breaks down. We cannot give us butter anymore here. We can just give us butter in once the choice is made. So that's our loss. Man minei within himself, entertaining how the tachton is going to touch him, how you and I are going to touch it. That's what begins the entire kavanah. Shezehu inyan, turning the page. In Nimlach ben Ishmael Shal Tzadikim. It's a famous medrash based on the pasuk, the plural in the pasuk. Could be even the pasuk, let us make man. Look up the medrash. But anyway, the medrash asks, who did Hashem consult with? This implication of he consulted. He consulted with the souls of tzaddikim. That means all the shamas, your soul. It means humanity in general. That's even before he can actually conceive them, the neshamas, in actuality. But neshamas are rooted in atzmo. So it's another way of saying consulted with himself within himself. Again, the language, that's it. The language, we profoundly limited. Our perception is obviously limited here, but we're getting the sense here that this is a internal dialogue. Actually, interesting, last night, the Sikha that Levi was chazering by Yitzias Mitzrayim, the Chiddush of the Alter Rebbe is that the Torah says you have to tell the story. What if there's no one to tell the story to? So the halach is, if your children tell it to your wife again, what if there's nobody? You've got to say it to yourself. You've got to ask the question and then answer the question. This is not by accident. Yitzias Mitzrayim is like the birth of Klal Yisrael. It's this internal dialogue. And that's kind of what's happening over here. The Eibishter is internally having this discussion of with the neshamas that are other, but they're part of him. That's what's happening. Yeah, it all comes down to that. Again, we said earlier today, the core issue here is Einad Milvadoi, and there's me and you. And they're both true. That's the core of it all. So now what he's saying, he's taking us into Mamish in Atzmos, and Hashem has this dialogue, this entertainment of how you and I are going to touch him, and that then begins the whole process of Ishtalshalos, an articulated will. This is what I want. I want to be a melech, and the rest is history. You say the Ishtalshalos follows, and the whole thing then comes. So now taking us back to the deepest place now, where it all begins. It's, friends, just entertaining. But we're being taken. We can understand why there was such a howler protest that this should be revealed. Who's going here into the Difnat Tzimtzum, into Atzmos? You and I were being taken there. And these minds are entertaining these ideas, which they're not so pure. It's a big protest when the Alter Rebbe started this whole thing. Till heaven had to say, you know what? Till heaven that I had to understand that that's what Eibishter wants, a dirbe tachtonim, imperfect, solid, sinful. You and I. Here, see this, understand me, know me, live me. When the Torah was first given, the protest began then really already. To say protest, because inside Giluyim and Revelation, but I can't understand this. So we're getting now to the whole avodah of the rotzoi that is critical. But now he's explaining this in Lifnei Tzimtzum. Like the water faces the water, like the image, like the water reflects the image that's placed before it, so too the heart. So till now we explained that that's Atzilus and Biyah. Now Lifnei Tzimtzum mamish. Here, Pshittus is relative. Atzilus is Pashut relative to Biyah, no Tzir and Gavin. But in the more absolute sense, the Ein Sof is the true. The Eibishter is true Pashut. And the face that appears in the water, again, it repeats again. But there's nothing else there. It's not even something that the water has produced. Hasn't created anything. There's only water. So who's put that image there is the one that is facing it. So what is this? That Tzimtzum, this is the tainug that the Eibishter is imagining, as it were, entertaining, want of better words, of our avodah. The marshal of Mayim is purely for Ein Sof. There's no shaykh in the rotzen. Rotzen means I want something. It's already otherness. It's a tzir. There's a hagbala. So pulas harotzen. Eino elo mitzad hamalacha m'nishmeisem shel tzadikim. So what did the Medrash say? Where does this will come from to create? It's because of the consulting with the souls of tzaddikim. And what is that? The pnei hamistakel, that's the image of you and I, that the Eibishter has chosen to be present in the most intimate way within him. Continuing. Now we're kind of going down now. Before the actual hamlacha, I'm not sure what the F means. We'll see further.
No, he's going higher. Maybe he's going to perish.
The hamlacha is the on. The hamlacha, no, the hamlacha is the actual
consulting.
No.
The hamlacha is consulting.
But one second. No.
Right, because
You
the
see,
tzaddikim didn't
the
exist.
halacha
Well,
is
no.
the-
One second.
how
Maybe.
they're gonna be eventually.
Hang on, let me
That
read further.
His desire to create the world.
Yeah, correct. Okay. Let's reconcile that with something. Let me just read further and try and figure this out. Okay, say simply, before he consults. Why? Because he already has this rotzen. That's why he is consulting. He's entertaining neshamas yisod, neshushem yisod tzadikim. Sheraseidu shetchila yeshna inyan dechichavit. Again, I'll tell you. See, my problem is he answers it in a minute. Shetchila yeshna inyan dechichavit chesed. The whole process of creation begins with this free desire of chesed. Usually chesed is a response for someone who needs chesed. But there's no creation yet. So it begins with, he desires chesed. Shehu betachlis hahelem. He's chosen. No. He chose, he wants chesed. Shehu betachlis hahelem. But yeah, I think so. Okay, I'm going to pause here, friends. I want to read this further myself. Let's not try and stumble. Okay, stop here. It's perfect timing. And we'll continue Be'ez Hashem tomorrow.